the reason that I'm here is because the club is seeking change.
He said, well, whether you come or not, you're going to see a completely different Spurs team under me.
My hope and my desire and what I'm going to try and do is give our supporters hope and belief that we're going to embark on something special.
Welcome into the Tottenham Depot. I am your host, Andrew. You can follow me at Stedka. You can follow us at Tottenham Depot. This is episode 218, and it's going to be a sad one, as we've said a lot this season when it comes to Tottenham Hotspur. Spurs knocked out of 2 domestic cups in the span of 4 days. I know it has everyone super duper excited for a super Sunday of podcasting. We'll start by throwing it out to Caroline. She is at CG Stefko. Caroline, at least we got a Matthias Tell goal, like that to talk about. Like, holy crap. Something we didn't even know we were going to be discussing last week. We will be talking about this week. How are you on this Sunday?
Yeah, I appreciate you finding that silver lining right off the bat. Thank you for that. I'm really happy to talk about Matthias Tell in this pod because I've been obviously really excited about that transfer. When it was first sort of getting rumored, and then didn't want to let myself believe it was happening until it actually did. But here we are. Otherwise, I am wearing black because I am in mourning for our domestic season, and that's that.
Yeah, that is kind of the mood. That is the mood around here. We're going to try and keep it somewhat light, but that is certainly the mood. Scott is also here. He is at Scotchy Bird. Scott, what's up, man?
Chilling. Tough one for Spurs. Tough run for Iowa State these days. Tough run for my pro clubs team. Yesterday, we got our asses kicked up and down the pitch. But, you know what? All jokes aside, I think if we all looked deep into our hearts prior to Thursday, we kind of expected what happened on Thursday and then subsequently Sunday, right? So, whatever. Here to chat with you guys, and can never be a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing, especially when Todd joins us. He is at TC_Kasho on X and at the Todd Father on Blue Sky. TC, what's up, my man?
Any day, sir. Any day that you get to talk about Tottenham Hotspur only having 2 matches over the course of the next 2 weeks, so we get rest, is a good fucking day.
That's all we're looking for is just rest. No rest for the weary, but we're the weary.
What else will we talk about today, Andrew? I don't know. Anything else going on?
Who could say? Before we talk about any of it, let's remind everyone that we are delighted to be partnered with Digital Spurs. Digital Spurs is artwork that is put to your favorite types of apparel. We're talking t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, hats, all kinds of different things. You see us rocking it every podcast if you watch the podcast on YouTube. And we want you to head on over to digitalspurs.com. Give yourself some new Tottenham merch that is not going directly to the club, but you can still show your support for it anyway. It's the way that I love to do it. Head on over to digitalspurs.com right now. Check out some apparel over there. Guys, I said it. Tottenham are out of the domestic cups in just a matter of days, and I think the smarter thing to do is just to kind of take these 2 games and talk about them together because I kind of feels like everything's just lumped together right now, and this feels like the big giant turd that Spurs have delivered for us this week in terms of being knocked out of the domestic cups is all just kind of lumped in. I don't really know what anyone would have expected, but I do know that we're going to have a conversation about Ange Postecoglou here soon too, and it's probably not going to be what you're hearing on other platforms because a lot of the punditry, and the punditry and the fanalists, which the 4 of us here are feeling one way, and I think the 4 of us are feeling a certain different way. Where I think most of the minority of things are, but. Caroline, let's start out. Throw it to you, just wherever you want to take it with these 2 matches and kind of where we are now.
Well, I think it was really hard to see us getting a win against Liverpool, considering that we were away at Anfield for one thing. They had almost an entirely fit squad. I know Trent Alexander-Arnold was missing, but he's, week to week, it kind of depends how he's going to play anyway. So we were not really set up to succeed in that match, considering our team availability. Like, I know when that lineup dropped in our group chat, we were all kind of like, oh, okay, that's a midfield, or is it? And as it turns out, it was not a functional midfield. It was just a game where it felt like there was not a whole lot that the manager could do in terms of fixing that, honestly, because, the alternative is bringing in an 18-year-old Swedish kid who almost got sent off in the previous match. I mean, it's just kind of a situation where the players who are not literally falling apart have to be on the pitch, and there's not a whole lot of reinforcement coming. Even something as minor as the fact that Dane Scarlett was cup tied for both of these games. So, we're literally coasting on fumes when it comes to player availability. So even though I kind of felt like these losses were coming, it doesn't mean they hurt any less, because I think, we're all big cup guys, and we were really banking on, getting something out of at least one of these competitions. And, it's just making the rest of the season look kind of bleak, honestly. Like, just to put it frankly, we've got the league where we're not in a great position, and, we got to try to put some points together to make sure we don't flirt with relegation. But we keep hearing conflicting things about when players are coming back, and then we gotta, hope that they do come back by the time March comes around and we're back in the Europa League.
Scott, as a big cup guy yourself, perhaps a number one with a bullet cup guy, where do we go from here?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious answer is Europa League, and at this point, we're going to put a lot of the eggs, if not all of the eggs that we have into that basket.
I don't know if you've heard, Scott, eggs are really expensive these days. Like, that's if you're going to put them all in one basket, that's a big risk. Let me tell you.
Dude, I'll tell you what, man, the Democrats, man, they made eggs so expensive, but God, so bad. Sorry. The four of us firmly share a political stance, so I feel comfortable bringing these things up. But no, back to Spurs. We do put all the eggs in the Europa League basket. I think that when it comes to the league, we do have to be mindful of the fact that I wouldn't say we're in a relegation fight, but we're not far off of that, right? So we're going to have to put a lot into that as well to ensure that we don't find ourselves in a precarious situation come 4 weeks from now, right? I know we just got a big 3 points against Brentford, but it could have gone the other direction, right? So things are still dodgy, and they'll need a lot of attention. But the Europa League is going to have to be where all our hopes lie as fans and as an organization. It's very, very important. And I think, sure, these two things sting, but at this point, there's no way we were winning the FA Cup, the League Cup, and the Europa League, right? And I don't want to sound defeatist, but if this means that we get a couple weeks off sprinkled throughout the next 2 months of calendar football, then maybe it does give us a better chance to do something with Europa League, where we're not going to be coming up against Liverpool and not going to be coming up against Aston Villa. I'll stop and point out Aston Villa is a very fucking good footballing team. I mean, they're through Champions League qualifiers in resounding fashion, right? They're very.
Emery's a hell of a coach. They're getting financial backing. They make big moves every window. They're well run. I don't know.
Our ownership group could learn a lot from Aston Villa in a lot of ways.
No
right?
shit.
We'll get into that, but yeah, I think we got beat by two footballing sides who are vastly better than us. And that's just kind of the long and the short of the situation, right? So
at the moment, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so now we focus on Europa League, where we really do have a legitimate shot at doing something in that competition, but we're gonna need guys back, because when I look at Liverpool, for example, I know we'll get to Aston Villa too, but with Liverpool, I told you guys in the chat, my only takeaway from that match was that we looked absolutely petrified to be playing at Anfield in a match of that magnitude. I mean, everyone was shitting themselves on the pitch. The first goal, Basuma turns the ball over, but Sarr absolutely vacates the space he's sitting in where Basuma puts the ball, right? I think why I bring that up is not to pick on Sarr, but we clearly were looking to soak up pressure and break. I mean, it was obvious, right? But I don't think that we fully understood how to do that. It's the first time we would have set ourselves up to do that in that fashion against probably the best team in Europe, right? If we get down to it. And the way that we looked to break was someone recovering the ball and then literally everyone in front of him just sprinting forward, right? And when you break and counter, you still have to occupy space. You still have to find triangles, right? It's not just like blast forward as fast as possible. And that's what we were doing. And so it just tells me that we were scared. We were nervous. We didn't allow ourselves to fully execute what was happening. And I think that's just indicative of the entire season and the fact that everybody's on their last leg. And I mean, these guys
and they're children, Scott. They're fucking children, man. We got to talk about this. They're kids.
I mean, these guys go home and probably can't get off the couch for 12 hours because of everything they're putting into their legs. I mean, many of you who are listening have played football before, but it is this extremely taxing sport, and it adds up. And so it bleeds into again, fear and nervousness and staring at that match at Anfield, knowing the trophy drought and all the media pressure and all of that, and we just absolutely crumbled. And I'm not surprised.
TC, you seem to be wanting to find some silver linings before we started recording, talking about looking ahead. With the cups now in the dust, you mentioned like it does open up a little bit of the schedule, and we've talked.
We would have to play the next round of the FA Cup right before we go to the next round of the Europa League if it was scheduled, accordingly.
Right, and not that anyone wants to not have a chance. I mean, you've always been a big, especially FA Cup guy. Like, not that anyone wants to be knocked out of the FA Cup, but at this point of the season, when you have the list of injuries that you have and the league position that you have, I mean, we wanted to praise a lot of what Ange Postecoglou had done to this point last week because of the fact that they're through to the Europa League stage that they wanted to be, the round of 16 where they wanted to be, and they were still in the cup. So now that two of them are gone, what's your reaction to this? I know it's going to open up a lot of the schedule, but at the same time, this is still, two opportunities gone by the wayside, especially one where you were in a position at least to get to that final.
Now, if you had asked me this question, Andrew, before the Elfsborg game where we still had Dragusin and we still had Richie, like it's a different conversation, right?
Sure.
When you look at it now, the only thing that I can ask for, when you look at the two performances that we just witnessed over the course of the last week, the only thing that I can ask for is rest for these players. They were ghosts on that pitch today against Aston Villa. I swear to God, I didn't know that Mikey Moore was on the pitch when he got subbed off. And we know how dynamic Mikey Moore has the ability to be. I watched Archie Gray get spun like a top all day today. And we know how tenacious that kid is. I watched Lucas Bergvall have to drop deep consistently because every time he approached a defensive player, he coughed the ball. And these are not, we know how technically good he is. These are mistakes of worn down players. There's no other way to put it. Exactly. And so when you view it through the lens of we lost Radu, like, yes, we picked up Danzo and we picked up Matthias Tell, which is incredible, and we'll come on to that later. But we lost Richie, who was designed for this system and helps in rotation because now we're just going to burn out another forward. And we're still not getting the type of consistent production against the top-tier talent that we need out of Heung-min Son at the pace that we're playing him. And we're not getting the impact across the board from our team. And everybody's looking around going, what the fuck, Ange? And Ange is going, what? For the last 2.5 months, I've been playing like 13 dudes every single match. I don't know what the fuck you want me to do here. And that's not being talked about enough. He came out and said something to that effect after the game today. It's really, really important, Andrew, to look at the rest of our season and this week on the whole as exactly what it is. The desperate attempts for a team playing their guts out for a manager and a badge and a fan base to do everything they could to propel this team to victory and falling short because despite the will and the mind and the heart to get there. The body was simply not able. And I don't think that the conversation needs to go much further than that about this last week. And so as I look ahead, I say, well, great, we're going to get some rest. We get a fledgling Man United side, and then a newly relegated side in Ipswich, who's been playing their asses off and is very good defensively. Let's just call that what it is. But they're still fucking Ipswich, and we should win that game. And then we get some more time to recuperate. And then we get a chance to actually bring some of these players back, Andrew, and put them into a side to compete for a trophy in Europe where we've got a statistically better chance of winning than we do either of the domestic cups. Now, last point I want to make is fuck whoever scheduled these matches, a semifinal for your fucking League Cup on a Wednesday, first and foremost, idiots. Secondarily, the fucking FA Cup next round that weekend, and you've got both of the teams from our tie in that semifinal crashing out of the FA Cup. And I think a big part of the reason why is because they were scheduled too close together. So say what you want to say on that, Andrew.
Yeah, well, and here's the other part of that, though. Liverpool play a very rotated side and get knocked out. Spurs don't even have the ability to do that. Like, they have to play all the players that they've been playing every 3 days. And that's why, you mentioned it. Ange had a lot of quotes after this match against Villa saying, you can criticize me, but you cannot criticize those players because they're busting their ass. They're giving their effort. I'm obviously paraphrasing. Ange did not say the players were busting their ass, but
not enough mates in there for it to be Ange.
Exactly. That's how you know it's a paraphrase. But let's be honest with ourselves. I saw, and I did not get the chance to watch the game on Thursday live, but I knew the result, a rare instance where that happens, and I saw the reaction being that of criticizing the players and their effort and looking like they didn't care. And I went back and watched the match, and I just didn't see that, and I didn't see that against Villa either. I see what you guys are all describing as a team that is, I'll say it again, busted their ass, and they're exhausted, and they're having to play, and they're having to learn, many of them, because they're young. And the fill-ins right now, I mean, we've talked about some of the players that have stood out, Jed Spence, Archie Gray, and then some of the players who have struggled as well, some of the younger players who have struggled. I would put Mikey Moore into that category to some extent. You just mentioned, Todd, how he looked, non-existent out there. You have to put Lucas Bergvall in that category, I think, to an extent. And look, for as great as he looked in the first leg against Liverpool, Anton Kinski has shown in the last handful of matches that's become a struggle a little bit too. The shot stopping for a young player is not quite there. And I don't know if anyone has a different opinion than me, but Vicario waltzes back into this side when he's healthy.
No, I got to eat some crow on this one, because when Kinski got here, Scotty, and he did such a good job out of the gate, and he's so much better with his feet than Vicario, and he is so much better at having a commanding presence on things like corners, that I made the postulation that Vicario may not get his number one spot back. That was foolhardy. And I am fine to admit that. Anthony Kinski over the course of the last week has I don't know, I guess it just flared up. He's got a really, really bad case of alligator arms right now, and it's he's gonna have to work him out, because that's not good enough, kid.
Yeah, but and I'm not trying to counter you. I'm just adding to all of this conversation. How much pressure have we put on him to come in a really fucked up situation and be everything that Vicario is? It's never going to happen, right? And I think careful with my words here. I was going to say he did himself a disservice, which is not the correct way of saying this, but I think you all understand the point. His debut at home against Liverpool shot him to the moon, and when you fly that close to the sun, things happen, right? And so Kinski is fine. He's young. He'll get it worked out. We need Vicario back. But if I look at Liverpool specifically, I think there were 4 players on the pitch who showed heart and passion and desire. And I'm going to elaborate on this point and clear some things up when I say this, right? It was Jed Spence, it was Richarlison, it was Matthias Tell, and it was Danzo. And those 4 players have one thing in common: they're rested to some degree, right? and that's it. And that's why they showed heart and desire and passion and the things that I'm hearing, right? Everyone's saying, oh, everyone was terrified and didn't give a shit. No, they're just fucking exhausted. And those 4 players aren't, and it shows, right? And so Ange in, Ange out, all of that. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of where we want to take the conversation, but I think it has to be said at this point. There is only one group or entity, I don't want to say person, right, that this falls at. It's ENIC, it's ownership. They have failed us again as an organization. They failed us once 4 years ago. They failed us again, and they failed Ange Postecoglou desperately. I think the only hole that I could poke in Ange at this point is that he'll come out in pressers and say, it's injuries, and it's my fault. And if I were him, I would just like to see him take it a step further and say it's injuries, and it's on the ownership. And I would like to see what they do in that situation.
That's how Conte gets fired. That's how Ange gets fired. You can't come out and just say it.
Yeah, but my point is, if he comes out and says that and then gets sacked, the fan base will just pounce on Levy like wild hyenas. Like that is that. And I'm not saying he should do that. I'm just trying to further my point to what the situation is and what the situation looks like, right? It doesn't do Ange favors when he comes out and says those things, but he kind of has to. So I understand that as well. But ultimately, it's all on the fact that we have not invested in the squad properly, and it could take a while to recover from this. The only way forward is to just ride with this group of youth, and 3 or 4 years from now could look really good, but 3 or 4 years is a long time, and a lot of hate and a lot of negativity. And in a Spurs world, 3 or 4 years of what's happening right now could be more than a lot of people can handle, right? And so it's just going to be daunting for sure. There's no way around it.
Yeah, if you think of where we were 3 years ago, guys, just football 3 years in football is an eternity. All we need is some solid backing for Ange through this next summer. And if he comes out and we're fucking 10th at Christmas next year and you want to fire him, that's fine. It's fine. But where I'm at is until we get the opportunity, Scotty, to look at what Ange can do with a healthy crop of players to work his system for an entire year, or at least for a decent period of time, we don't know what the issue would be. We were successful with Ange early, then we had injuries and suspensions, and we lost players. And then when we did that, we were substandard. And despite the fact that it's been different types of things that have happened this season, the trajectory has essentially been the same in his second season, which is we started okay, and we had some success, and we started to round things out. And right about the time that we were starting to head in the right direction, we had a waterfall of injuries, and now we're here. And so it's Levy knew that Ange played the type of system that he played in the summer. We knew that we had problems with it the first year. He gave him the opportunity to bolster the squad. He didn't do it, and now we're playing catch up. If we had the full swath of players, and we were in 14th or whatever the fuck we are, and we had crashed out of both cups, and the only hope to salvage our season is Europe, fire Ange. Give me Ryan Mason for the rest of the year. We'll fucking figure it out. But that's not where we are, and that's not what's happened. And so I have to back the man. I like the football that he plays. I like the type of man that he is. I like the type of coach that he is. I like the type of leader of men that he is. And I like the way that he's accountable, even if he's prickly when people ask him stupid fucking questions after his gassed out team loses a match that's painful.
I mean, he gets Mateus Tell to come to Spurs over Arsenal and United in the middle of this crisis. That says something a lot about the type of person that he is. That's the type of guy that I want around. I would have to ask very directly to anyone who wants Ange is one simple question is, what do you do from there that makes things better? And the answer is there's nothing that you can do to make the situation better if you sack Ange. There's nobody you can bring in to improve the situation. A manager doesn't come with 10 first team players that are healthy and ready to go, right? It's a mess of a situation. It falls squarely on the board, and Ange needs to be removed from the situation in terms of whose fault it is, right? For sure.
So I agree with basically everything you guys are saying, but here's where the pushback will come. And this is a little bit of me playing devil's advocate and a little bit of me saying, no, these are somewhat valid points, because you look at, for example, and we'll just take the Villa game, the way that he sets up that midfield. I mean, I can guarantee you that the players were not told in the midfield to be so far apart from the defenders and leave Villa acres and acres of space to run into. I do think that when you're in a situation like Spurs are in, where you are having to play the same players every 3 days, run them ragged, and you don't really have any options off the bench. Now, the two options he did have off the bench today, granted, were midfielders and did come in and just so happened to change the game in a good way. I mean, the addition of Basuma did improve things in that midfield for the second half. Sarr coming on, I thought, did some things as well. But like, there's in-game management here that I do still think can be.
Those players started on fucking Wednesday, bro.
I hear you. No, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I know that is therein lies the issue, but there doesn't seem to be a change of approach for different games either. That's what the pushback
Thursday.
is.
I disagree. I just fucking agree. There's only so much change you can do with the same 13 players, bro. And especially, and I said Wednesday is Thursday. I'm not talking about play. I'm not even just talking about changing the players. I'm talking about changing the way that you play. And I know he changed the way that he played. We set up way more narrow to soak up pressure on Thursday. We came out in a different formation today, something that's more akin to what we've been trying to do. The problem is that we don't have the fucking legs in the midfield to cover the space that we've been covering for the majority of the season. So we end up fucking looking like there's giant holes in the system. Like, what the fuck, Ange? He's like, well, I don't know. Fucking Bentancur and Bergvall have been able to cover that space.
Well, it also doesn't help when you get like a clear-cut chance like Son gets and he misses. Like, all these things add up. I'm just telling you what the pushback is going to be. And if we wake up tomorrow or the next day and find out that this is it, I don't think it is, but if we find that out, I'm to the point where I'm just beyond being surprised as to what this club will do. Like, I think
Totally. And I think that what my biggest issue here, Scotty, is that the club's best position, like what the board's best idea is right here, like what's the thing that's going to make them the most money, what's the thing that's going to save them the most money, and what's the thing that's going to continue to protect them from getting the ire of anybody that they give a fuck about because they don't care about the fans. And the answer is keep Ange. He's got it's Ange. And he's in his second year, and he's got a Levy contract, which means he's underpaid. It's incentive based, and we're in 14th. So Ange isn't going to make any money. There's nobody that you can bring in that's going to do a better job and cost less money than Ange and this current position is going to cost. And so you look at that and you go, well, fuck, they're not going to do anything. So now it's up to our fan base to either get on board or spend the rest of the season actively rooting against a manager who's doing the best he can with what he's got and a group of players that are killing themselves for the badge, even though there's only 13 of them.
I hear you. I mean, it's they're down to it, and I just don't think that. I'm with you guys when it comes to blaming the board for whatever we're blaming them for. I do want to get to talking about the transfer window that did wrap up, because I think when we look back, we're going to realize, oh, okay, that wasn't a bad window for a January. They brought 3 players in that we think can be helpful going forward. And that is kind of the goal here. Like, we didn't think that they were going to go buy 6 new players that you could slot into a lineup and go win 2 cups this year. Like, that was never the thought. But I want to know how much. I get what you're saying, Todd, in terms of expecting something for this board to do something, but like, I don't know what else they could have done in this window to make a quick turnaround. And that's where I think a lot of people are looking to Ange. I'm saying a lot of people, I'm not even saying this as myself. People are pissed right now. Like, and
but nobody's healthy. Just because he brought in 3, no, don't get me wrong. I like this window. I thought that they did a good job in this window. At the beginning of the window, I said, we need a backup keeper, we need a center back, and we need a forward. And that's exactly what we got. So I'm pretty fucking amped about that.
You know, the only reason that people would feel that Ange should be sacked is because change comes with hope. That's it, right? And
Facts.
I think it's false hope, but it is hope, right? And that's it. Like I've said before, we're fucked regardless of what we do because of the wage structure. We've talked about this for weeks on this podcast, right? It's the reason why our window wasn't bad. I agree with you 100%. Tell, Danzo, and Kinski, pretty solid window. Look at Arsenal. They fell flat on their fucking face in this window. They could not get a striker in. They tried. Man United, they signed Dorgu, but the only reason that happened is because he was desperate to be at Man United, right? That's it. They wanted more. All these clubs around the league, Villa did pretty good, actually. Villa and City are the only two teams who I would say had a better window than us in the Premier League, but it doesn't matter because we were already so far behind the eight ball because of the summer window being so poor and because of our wage structure. We know that we got told no by people like Kola Muani, probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of, I would assume, league position.
We got told no by a guy who actually ended up here. Like
exactly.
Well, allegedly, I would like to push back on that later, but we'll get on.
I agree with you, Caroline. Now look, Kola Muani, for the record, has 5 goals in his first 3 Juve matches. The dude
all the fuck out.
Would be nice to have that. But wage structure probably doesn't allow that to happen, right? And
he's on 300 a week.
Exactly. So until the wage structure is completely flipped on its head, we're going to struggle in the markets too, and it's going to continue to compound, and we're not going to have the talent we need to play the Ange system. It's all on the board. I keep saying it. I'm probably not going to stop either, but they are so happy to see their brand grow and continue to be profitable. If we want to be like City, we can. Like all the finances are open for the world to see, right? We talked about it 2 weeks ago. Levy has the lowest ratio of profitability to wage structure and earns the most of any chairman in the Premier League. The money is there to spend. We choose not to spend it. There's only one reason for that.
They're spending money, though. They are.
Get the fuck out of here. 40. It doesn't matter, dude. It's wage structure. It is wage structure. And that's the thing, is because the way that Daniel Levy does business, and I mentioned it earlier in the pod, and Harry Kane talked about it openly, is that it's all incentive-based. And incentive-based doesn't hit the books as part of wage structure. It hits the books as something different. And he divests that across multiple different channels, so it doesn't come out of Tottenham's books. Daniel Levy is a fucking wizard in front of a computer, but he is a moron in front of a person. And it's difficult. It's difficult.
The other thing, too, that I know I talk about all the time is the fact that we are still, all these seasons later, suffering from not being able to move players on. Sergio Reguilon is right there. He's still there. We couldn't get Leipzig to take Timo Werner back. Like these are actual constraints on the squad, size that we had to deal with. So I think that plays a factor too.
Well, I think that's still holdover. That's still holdover from prior to Munn and Langa and Ange. So it sucks that Reguilon's still there, and there's a couple more, right, that we're not mentioning. I think there's a couple more that can come back in or whatever, but they've done a fairly decent job of moving on the dead wood that we've been complaining about needed to be moved on for ages. And Timo re-signing was a contentious topic that we covered on this pod, and we were split on it, and it clearly hasn't worked out. And so, sometimes you take a shot and the guy ends up with another 10 assists. Sometimes you take a shot and the guy ends up being Timo Werner.
And getting removed from the Europa League squad. That's where we're at now.
Why do we're talking about spending and transfer I'm drawing a blank here, but transfer fees, right? And all this deadwood we're talking about. My question is, why do we consistently find ourselves in situations where we spend poorly and players don't live up to the hype and we can't move them on?
Recruitment.
Wage structure. That is the answer to that.
It's wage structure. He's right.
But it's also recruitment. It's also recruitment.
But wage structure is recruitment.
Agreed.
That's my point. Is
we recruit the guys that'll take those wages and have high upside.
Exactly. I've said a million times. There's a reason a player who we think is the world class, the next big thing, comes to Spurs. It's because they're willing to take less money than these other clubs will pay them, right? And there's a reason for that too. So. It's all wage structure. I will never ever jump off this hill. That is the reason that Tottenham Hotspur struggles desperately and will continue to struggle desperately. It's the reason why I literally on Thursday at full time, I didn't give a shit. I'm like, whatever, dude. I literally went back to my day, did not even think once about the fact that we've been knocked out of the Carabao Cup, because I'm at the point where, like, I will not let myself be fussed about the results of men on the other side of the planet who just aren't as talented as what they're up against. Like, it doesn't matter at this point, right? We may win, we may lose, whatever, but the club will continue to struggle and will continue to attract fans that end up like me because of the wage structure. And I'm not saying like this is a first world problem. Like, please, Tottenham, fix the wage structure so I can be happy. That's not what I'm saying. Like, I'm good.
Well, no.
Well, but it is a little bit of what we're saying. We're saying like this
it's
is
important to bring up.
We want to support this. We want to be invested in this, but we need to see that the club is as invested as we want to be. That's part of the symbiotic relationship here.
100%. Now, Caroline, we've sat on this pod numerous times and tried to diagnose the systemic issue with Spurs. Why does this keep happening? And I think after all of this time, we have absolutely uncovered the crux of what's going on, is that we buy high upside players that are willing to live with Daniel Levy's wages, and he lines his own fucking pocket while we put out an almost made it club every single year. Fuck.
Well, and y'all know that my answer to that, or not even answer, but just, I guess, response is that I try to tell myself not to get worked up over things that I have no control over, and that involves everything to do with the board, unfortunately. Like, I get that it makes people feel better to shout, "We want Levy out" at football games, but it doesn't do anything, guys. Like, it really is kind of a waste of time, if you ask me. So my perspective as a fan lately is that I want to get behind the players. I want to hope for the best, but I'm also having to be realistic about the fact that they're working under a lot of constraints right now. And I mean, I know I've ranted about this many times on the pod recently about the women's team being in, frankly, an even worse situation when it comes to future prospects. And I'm at the point with the women's team where I'm getting pretty tired of, going through the whole hurrah every week. Like, it's frustrating. I get it, but I don't know. It's like you either have to make a decision to live with the frustration or not. I don't know. I didn't mean for this to get so existential all of a sudden. Sorry.
No, you're good.
It's an important discussion to have, Andrew.
I do think as long as we're talking about like chronic Tottenham Hotspur problems, we should probably talk about what the hell's going on in the training room, because we've been hearing for at least 10 days, maybe 2 weeks now, that there's a swath of players that are 10 days away, and we still have not seen or heard from the likes of many of them.
Can I come in on this one? Because, I feel like the situation with the injuries was a really big determinant in how I approached these last two games, because it wasn't just that, we've had this injury crisis for months and months now. It's that it keeps getting worse. And we had been so hopeful, even just like, I don't know, a week and a half ago, that we were going to have Mickey Van de Ven available for these games, Richarlison, some of those players like Solanke, Johnson were rumored to be close. And this was also like, I think right around when Dragushin did his ACL. So, I mean, it's just, it is getting truly bleak in terms of the injuries. And the thing that is most frustrating to me is that it just keeps compounding, because like you said, Ange really has no choice but to keep playing these same, 13 players max, game in, game out. You're seeing the fatigue, not just in, literal physical matters. Like, our pace is just horrid right now. I found myself wishing for Brennan Johnson today, actually, literally. But also the decision making, I feel like is starting to just look slow and subpar. So it's, yeah.
And Richarlison goes down on Thursday at Anfield, and it's like that one looks bad and long term as well. After he just got back, you brought up Van de Ven. He played those 45 minutes in the Elfsborg game, and then we haven't seen him since. I think that, and I said this in our group chat earlier, I think Madison missing right now is really, really crucial and not something that anyone is really discussing. Like he gave everything in the Hoffenheim match and hasn't been seen since. Had a goal and assist in that match and really, really willed that team over, close to 90 minutes to getting over the line in that one. Like there are so many important players missing. We talked about Vicario earlier, and look, we'll talk a little bit about the window here before we get out of it, but like the Kinski thing, like there's just so many 1-for-1 swaps of injured players that you would love to have in and be able to rotate the players that are currently playing so many minutes, but it's just not plausible right now. And I don't know, like you said, Caroline, everything seems to be compounding on the next thing. I mean, I fear for Tell right now because boy's gonna be seeing a lot of minutes. I mean, I know that's what he wanted, but like he may be biting off a little bit more than he's ready to chew at this point.
No, well, couple things. First and foremost, we get rest over the course of next week, so he's good.
You get a week. I get you, but
but he started. There's gonna be not a lot of games. There's gonna be just the regular amount of games. Think about it. Think about the rest of the season. We got knocked out of 2 cups in a week. You got to change your thinking. Everything shifts now. So the Madison thing is frustrating for me. And the reason why I haven't really said it, I'm going to say it now. This goes back to the conversation that Scotty and I were talking about. Madison's injury prone. He's always been injury prone. He misses a giant swath of the season every fucking year. And the reason why we were the ones that were able to sign him is because he was willing to bet on himself incentive-wise and take less in wages. And so here the fuck we are, dealing with the fallout of having James Madison as your go-to playmaker and not being able to rely on him in cup season. That's fucking frustrating.
And the reason that you hawk in and target somebody like that is he had just been relegated, and that's the exact type of player. And I'm not knocking James Madison, right? But he had just been relegated, and that's exactly the type of player who Levy says, "Ooh, I know what I can do with that. I shouldn't do that because that's money, right?" Levy just says, I know exactly what I can do with James Madison. I can save some dollars and maybe get a tune out of him every third game or something like that, right? And it's a great point, Todd.
Well, and none of us have mentioned Romero because I don't think any of us think he's coming back. Like, period. We might not ever see him in a Spurs shirt again at this point.
We'll see him in a white kit again. Unfortunately, it's going to have a Real Madrid crest on it.
Yeah.
We keep hearing that he's a slow healer, and I don't really know what the fuck that means. Like, does
it means he's not going to play again until the Argentina match on the 6th or whatever?
Well, and Romero came out in an interview and basically threw the board under the bus, right?
He did.
Completely paraphrasing that, right? But he did. And if I'm Romero and I'm looking at the situation and we already know that he blames the board for the situation, I don't fault him for being like, bro, I'm not fucking going anywhere near that again. Like, I'm done. I'm not saying that a footballer should ever have like a holier than thou mindset, but he is so talented. He is a world-class center back, and I don't fault him for not wanting to come back into this mud bath of a football club when Real Madrid is interested. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I am a Spurs fan through and through to my core and always will be, but I'm probably going to Real Madrid in that situation if I'm Christian Romero. And I just,
of course you are.
Yeah. Like,
of course you are. You can't blame the guy. He's arguably the best center back in the world. He's certainly in the conversation. He's certainly in the conversation. He's got a World Cup to his name. He's got a young family to think about. The best team, statistically, the greatest team in world football is knocking it.
Winning above all else. The only thing that Real Madrid cares about is winning, and that'd be nice.
Absolutely. And plays in Spain all year against Osuna and Getafe. And never has to see an English February again, unless it's in the Champions League.
He was not playing too great at the beginning of this season. So it honestly is in his interest to not touch the pitch again for Tottenham if he wants to get that move to Real Madrid, because they might reconsider.
Yeah.
Well, especially, I mean, I'm sure he's going to, because these are I don't want to say important because it's, we're off years of the World Cup, but like these are qualifying matches. He is a mainstay in that Argentina lineup. Lisandro Martinez is hurt too, so it would not surprise me if that's what he's aiming to get back for. So then we get Romero for about a month and a half, and hopefully he'll be there for the fucking Europa League final that we're trying to win.
Yeah,
But we can still be frustrated as fans, I think, that our co-captain is doing this, essentially.
Yeah, I'm pretty pissed at James Madison too.
Look, Caroline's point about him not playing terribly well or as well as he could be, I think is a good point. I also would say, and this isn't even a counter to that, but just maybe a thought to that is, if you go to Madrid, you don't have to play like an absurdly high line to have all of the ball. You're going to have all of the ball, and you don't have to like just aggressively gegenpress to keep that ball, right? You're just going to have it. The line is not as high. The way that we play defensively, we know is taxing on people, and there is a correlation between hamstring injuries and the way that we play. And this is not a dig at Ange; it's facts, right? There is a correlation there, and so going to Madrid probably just allows him to put in much better performances without having to kill himself in the process, right? So, anyways, yeah.
I don't think enough can be said about the type of conditions that English football players play in. Like, this is the biggest, strongest, fastest league in the world. It is the highest pressure. It has the most scrutiny, and you play in such a shit climate for soccer. Like, I don't know how else we can describe it. Like, if you go to those countries at this time of year, like, it's the difference between, for an American listener, between like trying to play your entire winter season in fucking Idaho or versus trying to play your entire winter season in like Southern California. That's the easiest way that I can describe it, man.
TC, 100%. you bitch about how much gravy they put on their food. They need it. That's
terrible. It's tar. It is tar based. I don't know how else to describe it.
The gravy provides the warmth, my friend. That is why. Guys, before we get out of here, go ahead, Caroline. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say there's a reason that players do not go to the Premier League to retire. They escape from it.
Yeah, that's right.
They go to Miami or LA to retire.
No. They go to Italy or Spain, where the speed I shouldn't say half as fast. It's noticeably slower. You have way more time on the ball. Mm-hmm. The quality, as we just saw, the quality of leagues came out. Shout to Serie A for being second to the Premier League. But imagine going to Spain and getting to play for the team. Like, it's the difference for American sports of like going to the Yankees or the Red Sox as opposed to going to the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's like, yeah, it's a major city and the stuff's pretty new there and people are really passionate about it, but good fucking luck winning anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it's completely true. Go ahead, Scotty.
No, I was just gonna say, and I think it's worth mentioning on that point too, that I know there's a lot of like, oh, this wonderful training facility and London and all these like shiny things. I think that as fans, we also have to recognize that sure, those things are nice, but they are not going to bring someone to a club over a better option. Like it's just not going to happen. So those things will be nice with a nice wage structure, but we don't have those things. We have shiny toys, but we don't pay players what they could be earning elsewhere. So
before we get out of here, guys, let's talk a little bit about the transfer window that we knew last week was ending, but didn't know that it was going to bring Matthias Tell in. A little bit of a surprise there, I think, on deadline day. A delightful surprise. But it is 3 players that come in. I don't have any problem with this window. Like I said earlier, I kind of alluded to it. Like, you know, and TC, you said it. Like, they brought in the goalkeeper, they brought in the defender, and they brought in the forward. Like, yeah, would a midfielder have been nice too? Sure, but they've got enough of those right now that they're trying to figure out how to cobble one together. Not that we think there are any grand solutions there, but I don't know. I think this is a positive window, but it's not a window that is going to really like rattle anyone in terms of short-term success, but in terms of the long term, I really like it. And I especially really like it when you bring in Tell on a loan and Ange Postecoglou says, he ain't gonna be here for 6 months. This guy's mine. Like, he's taking some ownership here and saying, we want this to happen for this club for this to be a long-term thing. And I kind of love that attitude toward Ange, and Ange obviously being the one that you know, if reports are to be believed, called and sealed the thing.
No, it was a great window in terms of a January. I'm just going to call that what it is. If you were to, and the reason why is because you made on the radar purchases for plug and play players at a time where you needed plug and play players. And I think in doing so, the fear is you're going to buy somebody that's going to slow the development of a piece that you already have that's like out on loan. You are going to overspend and panic buy for somebody who isn't worth the money, or you're going to pick somebody up that's going to help you in the short term and not be able to help you in the long term. And so I think being able to bring in all those players that you can plug and play and make sure that you don't fall into any of those pitfalls of the January window is a tricky tightrope to walk. And I thought we did a pretty good job of it this year, even if it didn't happen as quickly as us as fans wanted it to.
But when does it ever? Of course,
no, it doesn't. It doesn't, because business. So you just understand that. And like, no. I don't know, man. I honestly, I looked at it and I was like, I don't think that I love Danzo has the ability to just jump right in and play, but I don't think that he's going to get in the way of Vuskovic and his development, for example. Right.
Yeah.
But is he going to walk in and replace Romero? Is that what's going to happen? Like,
I don't think so, but I don't necessarily think that he needs to. I think that we need Kevin Danso for the third and fourth competitions as opposed to the first and second competitions, or however you want to look at it. First and third, second and fourth, whatever it is. He's a capable player in an Ange system that we got at a good rate, is happy to be here, and is going to get valuable minutes for us.
Scott, how do you poke holes in this window? Is there anything that you're anti? Is there, can we even muster up any energy to get up in arms about this window or not?
I mean, I think it was a strong window, but I also don't think that it moves the needle much. I think it keeps us somewhat serviceable, as we march forward. But Tell is one that down the road can very much move the needle. But I agree with Todd. I think Danzo is depth, and he's solid depth, and I appreciate that. And Kinski, who knows, right? He's a 21-year-old goalkeeper, and a lot hinges on what happens with both his development and Vicario. But I think Kinski is somebody that we brought in to have a keeper who could have the ball at their feet until Vicario gets back, and nothing more than that. So I don't think it was a great window, and you guys won't be shocked as to why I think we weren't able to have a better window.
But dude, I feel like if you put Vicario and Kinski together, you'd have the perfect goalkeeper. So like maybe they could learn from each other. I don't know.
Yeah, no doubt. But it's interesting that we'll talk about incomings, and we're going to continue to talk about incomings and building the squad and all of that. But again, because of that pesky little wage structure, I don't think we're going to bring in anybody who's going to move the needle enough. And so if someone asks me, what do you do moving forward from the situation? I look at my best 11 as Spence, somebody, Van de Ven, assuming Romero leaves, right? Spence, someone, Van de Ven, Udogie, Archie Gray, Popsar, Lucas Bergvall, Matthias Tell at striker with Mikey Moore and Wilson Odebear flanking him. And I ride with that, and I say it's going to be rough for a couple of seasons, but that is a heap of young talent who will take a lesser wage because they're young, right? And we build from there. So why I bring that up is we're going to be screaming for these like star-studded signings. I don't think it really matters because we can't afford the real star-studded. We can, but we choose not to pay the real stars, right? And so we really just roll with this crop of youth we have. And maybe it's me trying to throw a positive into this conversation, is we have one of the most talented youth groups on the planet, if not the most talented youth group on the planet. And so you maybe have no choice but to just ride with that. And like I said, it might get dicey for a couple of years, but 4 years from now, if that same 11 is your 11, we're going to be competing for Premier League titles. And maybe that's the glimmer of hope that we have as Spurs fans.
Dude, the fact that you didn't put Decky in there makes me sad. I think
he also didn't put Porro in there, so.
That doesn't make me sad.
I'm not as surprised by.
Yeah, that doesn't make me sad. But dude, I think Decky gets the armband. Honestly, I think when we move, I don't think Son gets another contract. I think Decky gets the armband. He's clearly our player of the season. He's in the prime of his career. His wife loves London. He bleeds for Ange. Like this is a thing, and I think it's coming.
For sure.
Caroline is the preeminent Bayern Munich watcher amongst the four of us. How excited should we be for Matthias Tell? And do we think that there's a chance that he is here beyond this season?
Well, Ange sounds confident about it. So as long as Ange doesn't get himself sacked, and maybe we're in a good position to keep him. But I first I'm going to address the Bayern of it all, because I honestly feel bad for Matthias in the sense that he's really going from one kind of debacle to another in terms of the board at both clubs. Like Bayern has
you pick winners is what you're saying.
I just love to suffer. I love to suffer. It's why I watch sports. No. Yeah.
For the record, Bayern's in first right now.
They are. And you know what? That is a very typical Bayern fan thing to like completely, talk shit about ourselves even though we're winning. But anyway, the problem with Matthias at Bayern is that he really is in a like situation where he can't win. Like he's got Harry Kane in front of him at striker, and as we all know, Harry Kane does not get subbed off ever. Like that's just the reality. And then on the wing positions, which he prefers the left to the right vastly, we've got Kingsley Coman, who I'm about ready to fly to Munich and boot out the door myself because I've run out of patience with him. And you've got Serge Gnabry, who's kind of in and out. It's a lot of players who I think the club is just reluctant to move on for somewhat sentimental reasons, to be quite frank, especially with Coman, being the game winner in that Champions League final many seasons ago. So that's a bad situation where he's not getting the minutes. So he needed this move. And I guess he's coming to Spurs at a time where he is going to get that game time out of necessity. But I just hope that, we actually prioritize developing him in his best position, which in my opinion is striker. I think his technical skill set just really lends itself more so to playing as a central forward. And I mean, we got to see a glimpse of it today with his spectacular finish. Like
really beautiful goal.
He makes goals like that look easy, like every time he scores them. And that's really my favorite part about him as a player, is just his finishing ability is superb. So yeah, I'm really jazzed about this signing. And I think Spurs fans honestly are going to be pretty pleasantly surprised by how quickly he gets up to speed, because he is really young. Already. He's young, but he's ready. Like, in my opinion, he has everything he needs to succeed. He just needs to be given the chance, really.
Absolutely. I think that the physicality of the league is going to take about a season for him to get like fully, I don't know. You have to get seasoned in the Premier League, especially at that position, because, you've got, and I mean, granted, he played in Germany, which is fair.
And he's played in Champions League too. He scored in the Champions League. So it's not that he's like devoid of experience,
Certainly not. I'm just like, you take a beating getting your ass kicked by the Virgil van Dijks of the world every week in and week out in the Premier League. And
amongst us,
Right. So that's my only thing. I think he's done a good job of creating for himself, which is obviously when you have a new forward player coming to the Premier League, it's like, how well does he get his shot off? So far, it's been pretty good. We'll see how long it takes the rest of the league to kind of learn his moves and what he's able to do. But you can't complain about the attitude and the production already, Andrew. It's something where this guy has provided a spark when we've desperately needed a spark. So I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him work. And, obviously, like I said earlier, he's going to get all the minutes he can handle because there ain't nobody else that's taking him. Like, I mean, once Solanke comes back, maybe he'll be able to provide something.
Where are we at on that guy?
That's what I'm saying, man. It's a big fucking mystery for a lot of these people.
Well, dude, can I ask this question? I'm just gonna pose this, Andrew.
Let's go to the end of the pod, Todd question. Here we go. The new segment.
Here we go.
What's the question this week, DC?
Before we get to the requisite Todd question, can I just add one more point on
Please.
This? So regarding the whole attitude thing, this was really a frustrating moment for me in our transfer window, that the fans were like so ready to turn against him before he had even arrived. because, I really think people need to be a little more credulous about what they read in the transfer media, which is, like famously not reliable.
Right, which is to say, don't do that.
Yeah,
Like,
I just think there's this, idea that he like said no to Levy's face. Like he didn't say yes. We obviously know that. Like it took him a while to come to this decision. But like I said, with everything going on with Bayern, you really cannot blame him for wanting to take his time, consider all his options, and make sure he was going to land in a place where he could actually, get the game time that he desperately needs. So,
Carol, I think that's an outstanding point. You're talking about a 19-year-old
cut him a break, man.
has been pegged as like one of the next big things, who is running his head into the wall at a club trying to break through and can't, and then gets to this window and has to decide what's the best move for my career at 19. Give me up. Yeah. I'm fully on board with that. DC, what do you got for us?
Given the realization,
what's your challenge?
Given the realization that we've had on this very podcast today, that it is Daniel Levy's lack of wage spending that has led to us having all of that almost in our lives as Spurs fans. Do we think that he set up the medical staff and physio in a certain way, and that when it comes to how things are run as far as what the players are able to get from a medical needs standpoint, that they're getting levied, and that's why it's taking so long for players to come back or get healthy?
I don't. I feel like if something like that was happening, if something was being shorted in that department, I feel like we would know.
Who said anything about shorted? And also, you got to keep in mind the fact that they fired the guy in the summer that had been there for like 28 fucking years.
You already know what I'm going to say, which is that we simply do not know and will never know the answer to your question.
Understood. And I'm not, I pose this question because I think it's important to think about the fact that if this gentleman runs the most important part of his industry, the football team, in this manner, how is he running the other areas of his industry?
Well, the only thing that I will say without sounding like I have a tinfoil hat on is that the medical room, the training room, does not impact the profit and loss sheet in a way that other areas of the organization do, like the head of catering, for example, right? And I'm not joking when I say that. Like the person running the bars and the grills throughout that stadium, which I know a few of us have been to, right? It's an incredible place, and it takes a lot to make that place run, but the training staff doesn't have anything to do with that, right? And we all know where priorities lie. So maybe I would answer your question by saying, do I think that they could be doing a better job at attracting the type of talent we need in the training room? Probably. And that's as far as I can go.
I don't have any disagreements whatsoever. I think that there's a lot of there's a lot more questions than answers when it comes to what the hell's going on with the training staff, because I know clubs get injuries, and I know these players are all playing a lot of games at every team, but like it's truly unprecedented. And I know that the word unprecedented gets thrown out a lot these days as well, but like that is, if you just look at the list and look at not only the list, but the quality of players, the time that they've missed, the times where they've tried to come back too early and had to go back away. I mean, like I said, I brought up Dominic Solanke's name earlier, and Todd was like, "Oh yeah, what happened? Like, what about him?
When is he coming back? Yeah,
when's he coming back?
Yeah,
Wilson. Oh, like there's so many. You can pull a name out of a hat and be like, "Oh yeah, that's right, that's a guy." Like it really is. It's kind of baffling. And
the interesting thing with all of that is, if we want to ask the question, why is this happening, and we utilize Occam's razor, I would say that the only answer is the way that we play football, and of course the fact that we don't have the depth to be able to do that, right? But we absolutely play football as if we were driving a minivan on fire off of a cliff, right? And
yeah, dude, but the issues in the training room have been persisted before Ange, before Poch,
right? You just sprinkle that on top of what I'm saying, right? And it leads to the dumpster fire that is Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. I think and that's on Levy for setting up the situation and having a manager who plays this way, hiring them, choosing to, not giving him the depth and not giving him the medical staff required. It's Occam's razor tells us that there is a very real reason this is happening, and it's not just some fluke, right? The chips were not put in place for this to be successful, and none of us are shocked by that because we are Tottenham Hotspur Football Club.
The fact that you could use Occam's razor and dumpster fire in the same diatribe is the reason why we're friends.
Two of my favorite euphemisms. Is that a euphemism? Two of my favorite things to say in situations like this. So.
This pod contains multitudes. Yes. I like to speculate about one thing, which is that Sonny and Decky clearly are doing something off the pitch that is working for them really well, because it is straight up a miracle neither of them have picked up an injury in the stretch. Like a genuine miracle.
Well, I would just like to see
knock on all the wood, God bless it.
I would just like to see them translate to putting balls in the back of the net when they get the opportunity on the pitch. But I know beggars can't be.
We're on. The fact that you brought it up means I have to address it. The biggest issue with Sonny is he had the one-on-one issues early when he got to Tottenham Hotspur. When he really hit his stride, the biggest thing about Sonny is that he overproduced his XG like crazy. He's not doing that and hasn't done that since about the middle of last season. And because of that, we're seeing the taper. I want to shout out Andrew for calling this curve on the downslope after Sonny hoisted the golden boot and said, that is this man's pinnacle. He will never be the same again. And it is a fact. This is where we are. So now we just kind of need to take that with a grain of salt.
Doesn't make me love him any less. It just
absolutely not. But the thing that I noticed, dude, is
to win the Europa League for his sake, if no one else is.
Yes,
absolutely. But I need him to be able to sit on the bench for a couple of weeks and chill the fuck out.
He does need. He needs a rest. I mean,
he absolutely does. I haven't seen him shape with his left foot all season. He's one of the best left foot shooters from outside the box in the world. I haven't seen him shape up with his left foot all season.
Yeah. I have to ask Todd a Todd question now, and I'm sorry, Andrew's just trying desperately to wrap this podcast.
No, you can't.
I'm not going to let you, bro. Todd,
yes,
I'll ask you this. I'll ask everyone this, right? In Todd fashion, would you take a guaranteed Europa League triumph if you knew you were getting relegated?
Yeah, 100 fucking percent, 100%, absolutely. Because we're in the Champions League next year. We're gonna absolutely dog walk the championship and get automatic promotion back up. And we've got 2 fucking trophies. Eat it.
And here's what you do: you that lineup I rattled off earlier. You literally ride that through the championship, and you probably
we would dominate the championship with that lineup.
It's so great for their development. It really, really would. Like that lineup, getting to play against 30-year-old grinders, right? Who are destined to run shit in a warehouse someday, right? That's super mean. Those guys are great footballers, but
I don't know why you guys think that adding more games to the schedule, because remember the championship is more games than the Premier League, along with Champions League football. I don't know why you think that would.
And you have to play in earlier rounds of the cups as well as a championship team.
I don't know that I'm taking your offer here. No,
play the kids. Fuck it. Give me the trophy, and I'll see you in the Champions League. Keep it moving.
I'm conflicted because I just said we have to win Sonny a trophy, and I don't know that I feel confident that it would happen next season, if not this season. So,
yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like any of this.
I just want the Europa League desperately, right? And I would.
Oh, I do too. I do too. But you can't. But you can't fall into a relegation.
Dude, but you know what?
But we're not there. I'm not worried about that.
Bantered to death.
Yes,
to
that is.
I mean, is that any different than our lives now?
Okay, that is a fair point.
And at least we have a trophy.
Look, Paramount Plus has the rights to the championship. Every match is there. Just win your and just vibe through a season in the championship.
Well, that's
I'm not
hopeful.
even
For
joking.
Dude, the championship Champions League double would be crazy.
Dude, that'd be so sick. And sometimes you got to go through painful moments to grow, right? And I'm not even joking when I say that. So
we're already in pain, Scott.
I'm pretty sure the painful moments of growth are what's happening right now.
That's fair. If you'd have said the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup, Scott, I would have said no. But we have a history with the Europa League. We do. We won it in 72. One
with Europa.
Yep.
I agree with that.
Won it in 72. Won it in 84. Some of our greatest triumphs have come in that competition, and it's automatic. It's an automatic guaranteed spot in the championship or the Champions League next year. So Daniel Levy's pockets will be subsequently filled.
Yeah, and if you missed it, the Europa League moves were made. It's Danso, it's Spence, obviously, and Tell in. Forster removed, Dragishin with his knee injury removed, and as I mentioned earlier, Timo Werner no longer in the Europa League squad going forward. Goodbye.
Who's the biggest winner of that?
We all are the biggest.
Yes, indeed. No. But of the changes that were made, the biggest winner of that is Brandon Austin. Shout to that guy. He's worked his ass off. Yeah, fair enough to that. That is going to do it for this episode. Before we, go as long as a Super Bowl halftime show here, we're going to wrap this thing up. Be sure to check out our episodes on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Tottenham Depot. Leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to our podcast. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tottenham Depot. For Todd, who is at TC_Kashow on X and at the Todd Father on Blue Sky, Caroline can be found at CG Stefko. Scott is at Scotchy Bird, and I am at A Stetka. And once again, follow us at Tottenham Depot. We got Man United next week, guys, on the men's side, and a little North London derby on the women's side to discuss as well. We'll be back to talk about both of those. As always, come on, you Spurs.